Kaiser the Hedgehog. And when it comes to editing, I have a need for speed. And one of the best ways to learn how to improve my editing skills is Skillshare. It's a learning community made of bright, talented minds looking to help you find your special hobby or turn that hobby into something more. That is way past cool. And while editing's my game, there's plenty of classes on drawing, photography, journalism, interior design, and more, all in the comfort of your own home. Thousands of classes are waiting for you to live and learn. But if you're hesitating, maybe open your heart and give it a try for free. The first 1,000 people to click the link in the description will get Skillshare Premium free for 2 months. But you gotta go fast. DeviantArt.
Hello and welcome to the Talkcast Podshow, the #1 show on the internet and a trusted provider of rose-colored glasses. I'm your host, Lanny Pator, and I'm joined this week by editor extraordinaire, lover of all things Bara, and the biggest of bears. Kaiser Neko, how's it going, dude?
Hi, how's everybody?
And we are also joined this week by legal expert of all things in the cartoon realm, and you know him, you love him, moderator extraordinaire, introspective spy Quinn. How you doing?
Good.
Happy to have you on. I think, is this the first time you've been on the Talkcast Pod Show?
I think it is.
I know there have been, I know there was a few where I haven't hosted for various reasons, either lack of interest or being under the weather or something. But we're here to talk about the wonders, probably one of the biggest factors in at least my childhood, Cartoon Network, and where it came from and where it has gone and what it has meant to us. So I want to start this off by basically what was each of your introduction to Cartoon Network, because this is back when like regional cable was fucking weird. I didn't get Cartoon Network until I was in like late middle school, I want to say, probably early high school even, because it just like was not in my region for so long.
Yeah, I can't remember how old I was when I finally got Cartoon Network, but I do remember I must have been somewhere around the 9-year-old range, because I definitely remember, glomming on to Dragon Ball at a young age, and when it wasn't on like UPN being syndicated, it had moved to Toonami, and oh man, that was my shit. That was my jam. I remember Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Lab, and Toonami. That was my earliest memories of Cartoon Network.
What about you, Quinn? You when we brought up the concept for today's episode, you were like, "Oh, that was my jam." When were you brought into the cartoon family?
So when I was a wee lad, I was definitely more of a Disney kid. I was hooked on all of their Disney Renaissance TV series, Aladdin, Hercules, all that jazz. And it wasn't until I think my cousin started showing me Samurai Jack and Dexter's Laboratory that I pivoted quickly over to Cartoon Network. And I think 9 years old was about it. It's like early 2000s.
Oh, you youngin'. I remember you bringing up like the Disney Renaissance and like the Disney Channel and all that. It reminds me that like I was very much a Nickelodeon kid growing up. Growing up into the early middle school years. Because my dad was a big part of a children's radio station in Minneapolis, and Radio Disney, when that came into town, completely shut that down. Like it was over for that. So we were kind of a no Disney family for a hot minute. So I was on the Nickelodeon train. And I remember the first time I got to see Cartoon Network was when my family and I were on a vacation to, I think, my grandpa's cabin in Colorado. And it was just one of the channels that happened to be on that cable package. And that was also the first time I ever saw Dragon Ball Z, the show. Because I don't even remember if Toonami was a thing back then. If it was like kind of early on. But they did have a block running Dragon Ball Z at that point. And
I think they only ever had Dragon Ball Z on Toonami on Cartoon Network. So it must have been the really early stuff. Probably with Moltar.
Yeah, I was going to say the Moltar days.
Yes. It absolutely was.
Yep.
And I still remember the first episode I saw was Goku going Super Saiyan, which, goddamn, what a first episode. Also kind of I don't know. It's like one of the hypest moments, but then also it's like if you start with that, you kind of know where everything's leading up to that point, right? But yeah, that was the first time I saw it, and then about a year or so later, it came to my region in Minnesota, and I fell in love. I loved so many of the cartoons. I loved like Cartoon Fridays.
Hell yeah!
I have so many fond memories of, just getting back from Blockbuster, renting the latest game, sitting down, like my family would usually order pizza on Friday, and then like in the evening I'd turn on and, see the latest episodes of like Johnny Bravo, the Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Lab, and when it was introduced Samurai Jack. I'm giving myself nostalgic goosebumps thinking about it, but roaming into that, what were Quinn, you mentioned like Samurai Jack was like the big one that kind of pushed you in. What was the show that like spoke to you, just kind of hooked you on Cartoon Network?
So I bring up Dexter's Laboratory and Samurai Jack as kind of like my gateway drug, but oddly enough, it was the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy that got me to just completely switch over to the channel, because that was my lovely mix of just devil-may-care humor, macabre kind of style to it. That was what got me to go, oh, this channel has what I want. Forget you.
It always had kind of a Tim Burton-y feel to it, didn't it?
Exactly, yeah. And I was all over those films at that age.
Like it had a very macabre style that was you didn't find it in other cartoons at the time.
It was definitely liked to lean into that like late 90s, early 2000s kind of like, oh, all those cute little cartoons you grew up with? No, here's the one where death is a literal main character, and you have this kid played by Richard Horvitz, and he's crazy, and you have the sardonic Daria-esque, Mandy, and yeah, no, like at the time. So it's kind of weird for me and my relationship with a lot of those cartoons. I look back on them thinking they were way funnier than I thought than when I was a kid, because there was a part of me that when I saw that show as a kid, I'm like, wow, they're really trying hard with this.
Oh yeah, but it also has stuff that like really sticks with you. I can think of just off the top of my head. Brains, I won't lie. I'll eat your brains till you're zombified. That whole episode, just like that musical, like Little Shop of Horrors-esque thing where Billy's feeding his alien, his pet alien. It's in there. It's in my memory banks, and it won't go away.
Oh yeah, that was also my gateway drug into I think Voltaire and his whole shtick.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. That was Voltaire.
Oh my God, that was Voltaire. Holy shit. Also, I'm a really big Voltaire fan, so that's a big pull for me.
Right on. But actually, on that ground, the show that like really got me, the one that I always looked forward to the most, Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I couldn't watch that show as a kid.
How could I have forgot? I think that was definitely part 2 of my gateway in. I don't know why I forgot about him.
It was beautiful because it was funny, but it was also very creepy and unsettling, which are things that go really well together. It's why. Oh God, Get Out is such a good horror movie to me, because it blends comedy and absolute horror to such an amazing degree, and Courage the Cowardly Dog kind of like fostered that love within me when I was young.
Yeah, no, I can totally see that.
Because it's a very creepy show with some very disturbing visuals at times, especially for young children. But
I cannot believe that naughty was the thing that was allowed to air on kids' television. I'm sorry.
I was just about to say that. That episode and the episode where Courage kept being told, like, that's not perfect. You're not perfect. Gave me nightmares.
The lady in the water. What was the one where there's just that creepy ghost-like entity that's like hanging out outside just wailing, and it's in a completely different animation style.
Return the slab.
Yes, it's just so much of that just spoke to me because it was so different from everything else that was going on that they had. And eventually you run into a bunch of other like great shows that are entire like probably one of the biggest meme generators that I've seen come out of Cartoon Network, Ed, Edd and Eddy.
Oh yeah, Ed, Edd and Eddy is one of those shows that I absolutely tuned into every damn time. Even though, like, as a kid, I couldn't stand Ed, but now as an adult, he's my favorite character.
Yeah, that's the thing. You kind of find a way to enjoy bits, like parts of each of the Eds, and you start to disrespect Eddie more and more as you go.
See,
I mean, I'm a Double D stand for life. I don't know what
Yeah,
you're
me
talking
too.
about. I don't see anything in those other two. One's an idiot, the other's a cheat. I hate them for life, but Double D will always have my heart.
I'm sorry.
How
I'll
can you
never be
hate
able
Big
to...
Ed?
What was that?
How can you hate Big Ed?
Nobody can hate Big Ed.
He's so wonderful.
But I can't think of Eddie anymore without that one meme.
Horny people have no rights.
What about you, Kaiser? What was your go-to show on Cartoon Network? The one that like you just remember so fondly sitting back and watching.
Powerpuff Girls is probably like way high up there for me. Either that or Dexter's Lab. Like it was either Craig McCracken or Gendy Tarkovsky for me back when I was a young boy. When I was a young boy. I also really loved Johnny Bravo, but that was one of those shows where I only caught like a few episodes, and yeah, it was good and it was definitely memorable. But out of all of them, it's Powerpuff Girls and Dexter's Lab. I also caught a bunch of like Cow and Chicken and I Am Weasel, but those were always kind of those shows where I'm like, yeah, those exist, and sometimes I'll watch them if they're the only thing on.
Those always felt like more like of a B tier Ren and Stimpy to me.
You know what?
For whatever reason, they just have that kind of edge to them.
It's not that they were bad, you know.
No, they're perfectly watchable. I'd watch them if they were on, but it's not like, oh boy, Cow and Chicken's on, better switch over.
Although, we're forgetting, okay, there was one show, my real first show now that I remember, because I'm looking at a list. Two Stupid Dogs.
Oh, isn't that cute?
But it's wrong! Yeah, no, Two Stupid Dogs was actually my first show. Now that I'm remembering it, yeah. That was the one I came in on. That was the one I loved. I don't know why, particularly that show. I think I just caught on to like, oh, big dude, big dumb stupid guy who's not actually that dumb. And then this dumb as hell little dog.
Because it was also at this point when Cartoon Network kind of made it into my scope, made it into my region. Nickelodeon was focusing heavily on more live action content for their, the demographic that was once, eating up Rugrats and things like that. I mean, sure, they still had SpongeBob and like a few other things. I think Avatar: The Last Airbender was also going on around this time, but I think we can get
Nickelodeon?
into that.
Yeah, I think you're spot on.
Mid 2000s. But for the most part, they had transitioned over to a whole bunch of like live action stuff, and I always loved cartoons way more than any of the live action stuff. So
I mean, there's a reason that it failed.
Yeah, I just naturally migrated over to Cartoon Network because of it.
So it's really interesting because Cartoon Network itself tried to do a bunch of live action stuff, and it failed. It failed miserably. In fact, it's barely succeeding on Adult Swim. But I was really happy to see all their attempts at live action on Cartoon Network just fucking fail, because why do you go to Cartoon Network for live action shows? No.
I remember like the advertisements for, I think the show was called Dude, What Would Happen? I never ever tuned into it, but I remember the advertisements for it all over the goddamn place. And I'm just like, I don't care. I really don't care.
It was them trying to capitalize a lot on reality TV show and a lot on reality TV and a lot on just cheaper, easier to make programming, and it came off super obvious.
It kind of sucks that they had like Andrew WK to come in and do like a whole promo for it and even host one of the shows, and it was still like, why are you putting this on Cartoon Network?
Yeah, I believe that was Seeing Real, right?
I don't remember the name. I just remember they put him in like a city alley with a bunch of TVs, and some of them blew up.
Yeah.
I mean, we all understand that like animation is extremely expensive, especially in the way that like some of these earlier ones were made. So the fact that they had an entire network based around it was actually kind of impressive, all things, even though they licensed out a lot of their like earliest stuff, basically taking from the old Warner and Hanna-Barbera archives and just pushing what they had and, you know, making a programming block out of it, which would, I think, eventually become Boomerang.
Yeah, no, I was actually doing a little bit of research just to see what the channel was like before I globbed onto it, and it was essentially Boomerang before Boomerang.
Yep.
Yeah, it was just a whole bunch of the old Hanna-Barbera stuff, Tom and Jerry, and I don't even think Looney Tunes was on there, but...
It might not have been, because if I remember correctly, Looney Tunes... I think Looney Tunes was actually on Nickelodeon for a little while. I might be wrong.
It absolutely was, because I remember watching a lot of Looney Tunes when I was a kid.
Yeah, okay. I also grew up with both Disney and Nickelodeon, so we, I don't know if I could have done a big retrospective on Disney, but if we decided that we wanted this to be about Nickelodeon, I would have been there too.
I will talk about Aladdin the animated series till the cows come home, because it was horrifying.
Like Courage the Cowardly Dog horrifying, or?
No, Courage the Cowardly Dog was intentionally horrifying. Aladdin was
just
the animators stopped caring or weren't paid enough, and that led to jank.
I want to go back to some of our notably, like, the favorite shows that we've mentioned here, though. Kaiser, when you're talking about Powerpuff Girls and Dexter's Laboratory, can you think of your favorite episodes, or at least your favorite, like, moments in some of those
My favorite
shows?
episode of Dexter's Lab might have to be the dodgeball one. Anytime where he brought out a fucking mech suit, I was so on board. I was so hype. Also, the Dexter movie. I think he had two?
Yeah. It was more of like a special, like I remember when they were doing that, though, because they were also doing like a big Samurai Jack thing that evening.
Yeah.
It was that one where like
he has to team up with different versions of himself throughout the timeline.
Yeah, and like there's that big buff Dexter and the super old one.
Yeah. And everyone's saying Omelette du Fromage, and I'm like, Omelette du Fromage is a good episode, but it's also like...
It's very memorable is the point.
Yeah, it's memeable. But it's not, I don't think it's like the best episode. I just think it's really memorable.
People remember Omelette du Fromage much more than they remember the Kusala Goopa Goop.
Oh, Kusala Goop. Oh my god. But when it comes to Powerpuff Girls, it's the episode where Princess shows up.
Just because the Princess Warbucks the first time.
Yeah, like when she wants to be a Powerpuff Girl and she fights Blossom, it's like, this is the fucking best. I was so hype as a kid. I was so into anime. So when American shows would pull off some of the anime stuff in a way that wasn't super obvious, but was like, yeah, I know what that is. I freaked out. I was like, that's great. That's so cool.
It's a very fun trope too, like the fighting the evil version, quote unquote, of yourself. I also really like the Rowdy Rough Boys for that exact reason.
Oh, dude, the Rowdy Rough Boys were great.
But my favorite episode of Powerpuff Girls was probably the Beatles, where the villains all teamed up and then they did all the Beatles puns and they broke up because Mojo Jojo found a girlfriend and he wanted to change everything about the group. That whole episode is nothing but gold. And even as a kid, I got the jokes, because I was old enough at that point to have learned about it, because it was like in one of the later seasons, and it was really good. That shit was legit. Do you have a favorite Powerpuff Girls episode or moment there, Quinn?
I have to admit, I didn't watch the Powerpuff Girls that much, because I was firmly in the camp of that's for girls, I'm not a girl, I don't like it. But, and honestly, you can kind of pull that explains a lot from this, when him showed up. That's when I started paying attention.
Oh wait, no, I actually know what my favorite episode is, but go on.
Well, and that's just the thing, I can't even remember like the details of it, but he had such a presence in my mind, especially with that voice. I remember when they couldn't call him Satan. Yeah, exactly.
Him was such a really cool villain, because you knew that him had a lot more power under its hood than it ever really let on. It was just this mysterious entity that still somehow always lost at the end of the day, but...
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just the devil.
Yeah.
And the Powerpuff Girls are going to kick the shit out of the devil. That's what they do.
Yeah, the Powerpuff Girls save the day.
Yeah. But now I remember my actual favorite episode, out of many episodes that are now flooding my brain, but the one that sticks with me the most is the one where they go so fast, they go to the future, and him won. And it's really dark and crazy, and it's just the best incarnation of him.
Yeah, it was very much. I almost wonder if that was a nod to Samurai Jack in a way, that episode.
They do actually have a direct reference to Samurai Jack in that episode. So
yeah, I mean, so obviously on that point. Also, the fan theory that Professor Utonium is a descendant of Jack, just
Hell
due to
yeah.
the art style and the actor similarity.
Wait, I don't think Phil Lamar played. Did Phil Lamar play?
No, never mind. I was thinking of something else. But there was
Okay, I was about to say.
there was like this big thread of things that these like clearly like look at them like I mean yeah they're drawn by the same dude, but look at the art style, look at their stature. They both have black hair. It was just funny
hey,
to me.
You know what? I'm all about that kind of shit, so I'll believe it.
Speaking of Samurai Jack, probably the only show in Cartoon Network that has bridged the gap from when it came out to being rebooted and still being good.
Oh my god, right? Well, I mean that's because they kept everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So
They also,
fucking.
they know who they had to pander to get that going, and they did it well.
So I'm gonna admit, I watched the premiere of Samurai Jack, but I was at the age where I was already watching anime. So when I was watching Samurai Jack, what I felt like I was watching at that time was a watered-down version of a story that Genndy Tartakovsky wanted to tell with that character. Because as I kept watching, I just noticed all these really silly episodes and these silly ideas with the stoic character, and some of them were funny, but a lot of them were just kind of... I felt like the story could have been really interesting, but Genndy, like, they had several seasons of the show, so... It very rarely ever pushed the story forward. It was just these episodic adventures of Samurai Jack, and he could never kill or actually hurt anybody. He could get beaten up pretty bad, but every time he defeated an opponent, it was always a robot or a mutant that had no brain or something, and at the end of the day, it always just kind of felt like, it just felt safe, and obviously, like, the network was like, you can't get too violent. So I never really got into it. It wasn't until it came back and Tarkovsky was allowed to do what he wanted that I was like, wow, okay, this is the best version of Samurai Jack.
Yeah, early on you had the Wolverine dilemma where it's like, okay, your hero's power is that he can eviscerate people. He's the best at is what he does, and what he does isn't very nice. It's murdering people.
Yeah.
So, gonna have to fight a lot of robots and cut up a lot of guns, is what we're saying.
Yeah. Oh my god, cutting up so many guns and robots and...
You can't discredit early Samurai Jack, though, because there are, like, a number of great moments and episodes that I can think of. I mean, the Scotsman's great. It's why they had to bring him back.
Oh, yeah, and the ninja episode...
Yeah, beautiful. The one I was about to bring up, when you had the ninja dressed in black, Jack dressed in white, and you had that amazing set piece where they're bouncing against different background colors, and each of them are disappearing as they do so. Beautiful.
Yeah, that
one of
shit was legit.
Yeah. My favorite, the one that I think back on fondly the most, actually, is one of the episodes where I felt like, it felt like it was almost going to be like an ending, and I think it was actually a season, like a season finale of sorts. It was the episode where he was trying to find the well, where he could go back in time, and it was guarded by the 3 blind archresses.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
I really liked that episode because it had it had some really good artistic stuff, and it had some good action. It had some good character moments. What about you, Quinn? Because you mentioned Samurai Jack specifically.
Seasons of Death.
Seasons of Death.
That's actually one of the episodes that's almost near the end. It's definitely season 4. But that one always sticks out in my mind, especially when it just goes through summer, fall, winter, spring, and it's just these different kinds of threats Jack faces in this world. Heck, the last one is just, oh, you're so tired, here, drink this water, eat this food, and die in this trap. So, and that one is just stuck with me for years. And I really, honestly, when I dabbled with fiction, I always liked having those kind of different little vignettes to pull from.
It's a good call. That's like, and then they finally brought it back on Adult Swim in a miniseries to finally cap off the story. And they just did it so brilliantly because they aged the show with the demographic that grew up with it. Which so few things do. They feel like, oh, we have to stick to the same trope. It's either they stick to what, it was doing before, or they go way beyond the pale like Ren and Stimpy's reboot did.
Oh.
Yeah, everybody remembers Spike TV's Ren and
Well,
Stimpy reboot.
that's because the creator's a creep and a weirdo.
I tried to bleach that from my mind. How dare you remind me of it?
Oh, I
You're the
remember.
pitcher, I'm the catcher.
Yeah, I absolutely remember Spike TV's attempt at an animated block with Stripperella.
Oh, Stripperella. Full of a bunch of really good jokes and a bunch of dumb bullshit.
Very much so. I mean, I guess that could, in essence, just be what Spike TV was.
I was about to say,
Right?
that's just adult cartoons now, thanks to Family
Look,
Guy.
I kind of want Frasier. Was it Frasier? No. Was it Gary Busey? I can't remember who played that fucking Gary the Rat.
I can't remember either. Like, I only remember Stripperella as a show, as a concept. I don't remember anything actually about it.
Yeah, I remember Gary the Rat, Stripperella, and Ren and Stimpy. Adult party show or whatever. But yeah, anyway, Spike TV sucked. Cartoon Network rules. And yeah, fucking Samurai Jack. I wish I could have like enjoyed it more as a kid, but I ended up like, again, it just kind of seemed too G-rated for me for the concept, so I kind of pieced out for most of it. But I can still recognize that it was beautiful and had a lot of great stories. I don't want to take away from that.
Absolutely, because when it finally came back on Adult Swim and it was able to tell a much more mature story, even while keeping some of that like campness to it, keeping its original humor style, but introducing like so much blood.
Yeah.
It was insanely bloody how that show kind of like turned out over time, because now he was actually able to kill creatures like that were mortal.
By the way, so I want to talk about some of the other shows because there were some weird ones.
Oh,
do you remember?
Yeah, there were a billion like failed shows on Cartoon Network. Go ahead, pitch some.
Like Hi Buffy Amiyumi.
Yes.
Which came out the same time as the much allotted original Teen Titans run. Like they were, I remember because they were back to back on Friday.
Yeah.
And they got them to do the opening theme song for Teen Titans.
Mm-hmm.
And
Catchy as
it
hell.
was, yeah, it was super catchy actually, to be completely honest. And yeah, I remember trying to watch it because, okay, so when I was a kid, I was super duper total weeb, 100%. Anything from Japan, I wanted it in my house, so I actually bought from Tower Records, of all places. Tower Records still exists in Japan, not in America. I bought a Puffy Amiyumi CD and listened to that shit and hated it.
Yeah.
I realized that, wow, this is not for me. I thought that if it came from Japan, I would like it, and I did not. And then Puffy Amiyumi, the TV show, happened, and I was like, well, maybe the TV show will be fun. And I did not like that. It was loud and bright and colorful and cheaply animated and not my jam.
That show.
It absolutely was not.
Yeah, that show definitely benefited from the fact that it had Teen Titans leading into it, and I think the producers knew that.
Teen Titans.
I think they absolutely did.
Yeah, Teen Titans was a weird show for me because as it went on, I actually got way more into it because it wasn't until like the second and third seasons where they actually started to tell some more serious stories and they got some better animation studios in there.
Dude, the episode where it's Raven's birthday and she stops time to make sure it doesn't push forward. Hell.
Complete with
Like,
the
that's-
return of Slade.
Mm-hmm.
Slade.
Slade. Ron Perlman. Fucking amazing in that
I know,
role.
right? Every time Slade showed up, I'm like, this is my new favorite episode.
Oh, and happy birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy was a fucking boss.
Can we just say, like, the whole Trigun arc for that show was probably the bomb? Like after that, it went into like kind of just Teen Titans global adventure, which I think was fine.
Yeah.
But I think Trigon was the high point.
Yeah, I think the stuff with Terra was A+.
Yeah, the what was the storyline called? In the
original comics, it's a loose adaptation of the Judas Contract.
Yeah, Judas Contract. Like,
yeah,
But that's what it was though, and a kid's television show, even though it's aimed more at young adult children, like teens, tweens, and everything in between. It's still not going to pull off all the more adult themes that the actual Judas Contract went into.
Yeah. I think I just remember that show as a kid as being that show that was like, God, you really want to be anime, but you're not. But then I kept watching and I'm like, okay, there's actually some good shit here. Those first couple episodes actually sort of suck.
Weeby.
Like, what? Huh?
You were extra weeby, I was saying.
Okay, to be fair though, watch those first couple episodes and you tell me they're not desperately trying to be anime.
Oh, I don't disagree.
Yeah, episode 1 sucks actually. The first episode of Teen Titans sucks because it kind of throws you
like it starts with a dispute between the lead and the Lance. So yeah, I can totally see where you're coming from when it's trying to be an anime.
Yeah, it's like, why are you starting the show with a conflict between the two characters on who should lead? This is really dumb. Like, we haven't been able to establish these characters, and now you're just, like, trying to force the conflict. And, anyway, Teen Titans was good. And another show that came out around the same time, if I remember correctly, was Megas XLR.
Correct. Mm-hmm. And that show lasted significantly less amount of time, but I loved it. Although I'm betting if I went back and rewatched it, probably doesn't stand up as much as it did when I was a kid. But this coming from me, who never really liked mecha or things like that, and this show is like all about those types of tropes, I loved Megas XLR.
So I think I didn't like Megas XLR as much as I wanted to, because I liked the concept, I even liked the characters, I loved the designs, but the episodes always kind of felt weird to me, and I think I recognized that because, again, when I was a kid, I was that weird kid who looked up Dragon Ball Z Uncut. I knew all the stuff that they'd censored. I knew how the networks treated shows at that point. So when I was watching it, I'm like, oh, okay, the main character of this is supposed to be a guy who drinks beer a lot. The other guy is a guy who definitely does drugs. But they couldn't say that. Like, if they wanted, what the creator desperately wanted was characters from fucking Clerks. But what we got were these watered-down TVY7 versions, where one's just a lazy gamer and the other one's just kind of a dropout loser, and it's not, like... And then they start fighting monsters, and the one thing they did do was they actually ratcheted up the danger and like the planet killer, and I was like, okay, so you've got these cool ideas, these cool concepts, these big dangerous monsters, but it always kind of just felt like, we can't push the limit too much, and so there was always just, that holding back again. And I think that kind of killed cartoons for me when I was a kid, because I always knew they're holding back.
And it was also around this time where I think it was probably like a year or two earlier than Megas XLR came out, but that Adult Swim started coming into prominence as well.
Oh yeah, and that only made the contrast even more stark for me.
Because, yeah, Nickelodeon had Nick at Night, where they'd play a bunch of, like, old shows, like I Love Lucy and stuff like that when I was a kid. Now I think they're playing, like, Fresh Prince or... It's basically shows that the older audience grew up watching.
Oh, it's really funny, because if you compare the shows that were on Nick at Night in the old days to the ones in the new days, you can see, like, oh, wow, some of the stuff that they're talking about. Like, they have Friends on there. Mm-hmm. And some of the stuff on Friends is, like, they reference sex a lot. And it's like, oh, wow, okay.
But yeah, that's Nick at Night. It's for the adults. I remember Nick at Night when I was a kid.
It was fucking like I Love Lucy and shit like that.
Yeah, but I mean, back in those days, they had different standards as well, where they might make a crack about beating one's wife or something.
Although I do want to say about Megas XLR, the last thing I want to say is that it was definitely a show that wanted to celebrate the 90s in its entirety.
Yes.
80s and 90s, because you cannot just have a character who's Bruce Campbell. It's just Bruce Campbell as like this intergalactic, almost Maddox-style villain. Mm-hmm. And I was like, when I was a kid, I'm like, Bruce Campbell? I am 12. Why do I give a shit about this?
I'm ashamed in both of you that you're about to end the segment on Megas XLR, but have not said a damn thing about that opening song.
Oh yeah, well, because everyone knows the opening song is a goddamn banger.
It's the reason most people remember Megas XLR.
Yes, chicks dig giant robots. But ultimately, my point with that was going to be, I think that Megas XLR did poorly because it was like they were aiming at the wrong demographic. They were aiming at these 12-year-olds who, yes, grew up during the 90s, but didn't have the nostalgia for it yet.
Here's the thing. I don't think it was a problem with aim. I think it was a problem with the person doing the aiming. The people writing it were also writing kind of like what they know and what they wanted.
Well, I know, but then why would you aim that at the 9 to 12-year-old demographic?
Oh, I think he was. That's what I'm saying, though. I think the writer was thinking, "Oh yeah, kids would love this. I would have loved this when I was a kid." That's what I think the angle was.
Well, I think it either had to be that, or the network was like, yes, you can have your show, but it has to go on this block, so you have to make sure that it is kid-friendly. I think that if it had been an Adult Swim show and he could have done what he really wanted, that show would have gotten 3 seasons. I think that show would have done much better.
I can definitely see it having more appeal if you were allowed to go full adult with it, but that being said, I think he translated it pretty well when it came to making it appropriate for a certain audience.
Yeah.
Well, I say that he didn't do an incredibly good job in terms of making a show that kids wanted to watch, because the show did very poorly.
I mean, I liked it.
I liked it as well, and that's the thing. Like, it being on like way back then, you don't know why people didn't really watch it. It might be why you're saying maybe it was just like a weird time slot that was conflicting with something else.
Maybe.
Hard to really put it into so many words, but the reason I don't think it would have made it onto Adult Swim back then is almost all of the Adult Swim programming back then was stuff that they were licensing that was already made, because this was back when they were doing like home movies, Baby Blues, things like that, Mission Hill. But they also were all the stuff that they were making originally, like, through William Street, stuff like that. Fuck. Very cheap. They had C-Lab 2021, Harvey Birdman, all things that had like pre-existing assets that they could just like throw in Flash and just like crap something out like a 15-minute show. Yeah. Aqua Teen Hunger Force was like huge for me back then. Like, I loved Aqua Teen Hunger Force. But all those things were incredibly cheap in terms of like, how much actually went into their production. And they got so much out of it. So yeah, I don't think Megas XLR could have gotten a proper budget on Adult Swim, something that they were still testing out, and isn't this what is essentially like Cartoon Network 2.0 could almost be its own channel today. Which, by the way, the reason we're talking about Cartoon Network is HBO Max released recently, and it has a whole bunch of the old Cartoon Network stuff on it. And it actually does have a distinct separation between Cartoon Network and Adult Swim in their library. So Adult Swim could almost be its own network as it stands. Is it?
It literally is. It is actually a different network. It just shares the same channel.
Yep. Oh. It has a whole different app and everything. I think, it's under the whole massive Turner umbrella, but when it comes to
it is literally a technically different network.
Well then, we'll steer this conversation back to Cartoon Network, damn it.
I want to talk about Case Closed.
Do you? What do you want to say about Case Closed?
It was the first show I was willing to avoid my bedtime for.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it sucked because my dad worked at the Dallas Morning News, so he had to get up early to help deliver the paper, and I had to kind of carefully weave my time between getting out of my bedroom, watching Case Closed at about 1 a.m, and then sneaking back to my room before my dad got wise.
See, I ended up finagling to get a TV in my bedroom so I could just be like, ha ha, suckers.
They didn't give me a tuner. I can only get like the locally broadcast stuff on that one.
Wait,
my parents
Case
wanted
Closed was
the internet.
part of the. Oh, sorry. Case Closed was part of the Saturday block, though, wasn't it?
No.
Because that's when they did anime on Adult Swim, if I remember correctly.
No, sorry, I may have misphrased it. I was trying to say I also had a TV in my room, but I never got a tuner for it, so I could only get like NBC, CBS, those types of channels.
See, my parents wanted me raised on the internet and TV because they didn't have the time for me, and that turned out great. So, I was able to watch anything I wanted to at any time.
Yeah.
I mean, for God's sakes, when I was 10 or 11, I watched From Dusk Till Dawn.
Which, by the way, is a real trip of a movie that I could do an entire talkcast on, but we'll save that for later.
By the way, some people brought up a show that I've been wanting to definitely bring up since this conversation started, largely because I rewatched the entire series because it's on Netflix now.
So you're looking at the chat as we also record these live on Twitch Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Central Time. What did the chat bring up, Kaiser?
Sym-Bionic Titan.
Yes.
Sym-Bionic Titan was oh my god. Okay, so that season of that show needed to be 6 episodes shorter so they could cut out all of the bullshit that didn't have to do with the plot
But what
or
about
the character
robot
development.
boy getting with the hot girl?
See, that one is actually character development, and I was okay with that. That one actually went somewhere, but there were so many episodes where, like the one where the boy Lance, he starts to do drag racing. And then other episodes that were just like that went nowhere, or were like, oh, here's a little bit of insight into this character amongst a bunch of stuff that has nothing to do with the story, and it's like, well, I don't know, man. And also, well, I really got to give it to Gendy for making that show TV PG, so like they could actually get away with death, references to death, destruction. They could actually give weight to it. I don't know what it is about it, but when you have a bunch of cartoon sound effects alongside your cool little action sequences, something about that, there's a tonal disconnect throughout that entire show because of it. Like, throughout all of Sym-Bionic Titan, I just felt like, I know you want me to find this serious and compelling, but you have the same sound effects you use in Powerpuff Girls and Dexter's Lab.
Which is odd considering the show is significantly younger, because didn't it start coming out in like 2010? I never actually watched it.
I think 2008?
That feels like about the right time. So I have to completely disagree with you, Scott, because even if the sound effects don't jive, and I have to admit, I don't remember the show well enough to say that one way or the other. I remember specifically in like the pilot episode, or at least the episode where they have the first monster fight with the Titan, the monster just has this initial attack that's just a giant explosion that creates this massive crater in the city.
Oh yeah.
And then in the next episode, they take they take a train ride through the crater, and that's just I think that was my first dose of that kind of grim serialization where it's just it's not just Angel Grove is fixed overnight and no one cares, it's still here.
Yeah, and I saw that while I was watching through it, which, let me tell you, I like Sym-Bionic Titan a lot. In fact, as I said, my biggest thing was I wish they just cut a lot of the fluff and focused mostly on the story, and they would have had a more compelling overall arc. And the fact that it never got a second season makes me very sad, because when I had finished that season, I was like, oh my god, I really need a second one now.
Yeah.
And nope.
I was hoping that it would get kind of the Samurai Jack treatment after Toonami picked it up when it returned. It did not.
Well, at this point, Cartoon Network kind of already had its young boys, show for young boys killer app that was continuously ongoing, and that was Ben 10.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ben 10 was a pretty big deal, and it still kind of is, but I never got into it. It always just kind of seemed like another one of those, oh, hey, look, action show for boys, and I'm like, no thanks.
Provided Stephen Bloom a lot of work.
And Yuri Lowenthal.
Yes.
And I was about to say, I actually did follow the show when pretty much Yuri was voicing the character, and that's almost coincidental. It's not like I'm a devout follower of Yuri. But, oh my gosh, how many series did that show have? It had the original one, it had Alien Force.
It had like 3 or 4, like Omniverse, like most power, like Alien Force, Omniverse. And then there's something like Most Wanted or like Maximum Alien or something like that. I can't remember. There was like a whole bunch of Ben 10 series.
Yeah, now we have the cheap one that's still going on that I think we imported from Canada, which is just called Ben 10 again. Dad's confusion.
Ben 10 again.
Like Ben 10 was like solid. I remember I watched the first I watched the first series. I was gonna say season, but it's a full series. I watched the first series of it. I liked his. I liked the Lancer in that one, Kevin 11, who was like the anti-hero, also kind of like he was the Vegeta of the show, where I got alien powers too, kid. Mine are stronger. Oh wait, no, they're not. You're still better than me. Go. And it was the villain's name, Vilgax.
Yes, the original one at least.
Yeah, the big bad of the series that I remember.
Was that Cthulhu?
Kinda, sorta. Like I remember he had tentacle face.
He was a lot like the squid people from Megas XLR.
And I honestly cannot remember a lot of episodes of the show. I remember the show, like I could give you the description of the show, which is like, boy, girl, and grandpa are traveling around. Grandpa is part of an old order of alien hunters known as plumbers, I believe. And boy finds mysterious bracelet that lets him turn into aliens, and he ends up fighting aliens with it to save the universe
and girl
for
learns
great
magic.
success. Yeah, girl. That's right. She could. See, I couldn't even tell you that.
Well, it's magic, but it's also alien ancestry. It got confusing. It very much felt like, oh, damn, we gave all the boys interesting things to do. We have to give something to Gwen. Magic.
There you go. You're a good support, Gwen. There you go. Now the boy's gonna make all the action figures for us. Which is what most cartoons are. They're just commercials for the toys. And Ben 10 is definitely that. Like, it has an entire industry after it. But speaking of the fact that, like, the newer series just kind of got licensed through Canada, there were a lot of Canadian licensed shows that they pulled in order to get some, I think it was in order to, I don't remember what Canadian Cartoon Network is called. I think it's just called the Cartoon Channel or something.
Oh, I think it's YTV.
YTV.
Yeah, and we're not talking about Code Lyoko. Nobody even say the words Code Lyoko.
Can we talk
You already
about
did
Total
it, and
Drama
I wasn't. Yes, Total Drama Island was going to be a big one that I brought up, which was a oddly adult show.
YTV and Teletoon. The other one was Teletoon.
Teletoon.
Yes.
That's what I was thinking of. But yeah, Total Drama Island had some very oddly adult humor in it that like didn't really fit with its aesthetic a lot. I remember the girls were always insanely proportioned, especially that blonde one. And they made like a bunch of topless jokes, things like that. A lot of implied nudity and some actual nudity.
I believe that was actually a spin-off of 16, an animated series that also got shown on Cartoon Network. 16
and Total Drama Island have voice actors in common, maybe even the animation studio, but when it comes to the actual substance of the show, totally distinct.
Yeah.
I think they have one or two characters though.
Maybe, but that could just come down to the.
Because I watched.
I did not. I only watched Total Drama Island, and I only ever watched that because, well, I gotta get through this so I can get to blank. Total Drama Island is not something I'd tune into, but it turns out incredibly successful because it's on its fifth series.
Yeah, now they're babies.
Oh God, they are though.
It was so weird to have it go through kind of doing the Amazing Race thing where it was just a different variation on the same kind of adventure, and then it's just, and now we're Total Drama babies.
Worked for the Muppets.
Yeah, I guess so.
Oh, okay. Now I know where I was from. Okay, so Jude is in 16 and Total Drama Rama.
Drama Rama.
The one with the kids, I believe.
Ugh.
Gotcha.
Okay, that was the connection. I knew that Jude was somewhere in Total Drama.
But yeah, you had shows like that. You had shows like Whip Crack Johnny Test.
Oh God, no!
Oh yeah,
I never liked Johnny Test.
The first show that pretty much ate the channel whole.
It was on so much. Like they had so much Johnny Test that they just kind of kept it on perpetually, and I hated it.
It was really bad.
I'm like, please, just put My Gym Partner's a monkey on or something. I don't care. Just take off Johnny Test.
Oh my god, My Gym Partner's a monkey. I never actually watched a single episode of that show, but I saw so many commercials.
It was okay.
Yeah.
I watched it. I
remember that they, for a little while, they tried to actually start a preschool demographic thing called Tickle You. That had like Yoko, Giacomoto, Toto. They had like Peppa Pig. And it fucking failed hard because Nickelodeon had already cornered that market.
Oh yeah, Nick Jr. Like we'll have to do a pod show on Nickelodeon at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they had a whole bunch of those, but I think the king of them, of like the most bizarre shows that they licensed out of Canada, Totally Spies.
Oh yeah.
That one I have fond memories of. I think that might be
I have fond memories of it too, but it's still a bizarre damn show.
The one thing I will always remember about Totally Spies was that there was an episode where they have to go to a rave, and, you know, they're getting in line to go to the rave, and a couple of people in front of them have pacifiers around their neck. Mm-hmm. And, either the people who were designing and writing the episode knew and snuck that in under the radar, or they had no idea why people would go to a rave with pacifiers. For those in the audience who might not know, ravers will often go with pacifiers because at raves, traditionally, or, you know, stereotypically,
you take sensory drugs.
Well, yeah, you take sensory drugs like E or ecstasy, and then you start rolling so hard, you start grinding your teeth. So ravers would literally take pacifiers to keep themselves from grinding their teeth down.
Also keeps them salivating.
Yes. So I found that really funny. Because I was like, oh, wow, okay.
Of course you remember the kinky bit.
The kinky bit? Kinky bit.
Yes,
Totally
I know.
Spies.
The
show
single
is
fraught
one.
with it. Scott, you opened the door way too wide.
Well, it's really, there's a YouTube account dedicated to keeping track of all the different...
the fetishes inside of Totally Spies.
Yep. You
gotta wonder how many of them are intentional.
I would believe most of them, if not all of them. I cannot think, especially when it comes to the rave scene, that they could have not known.
Well, hey, you think I can get away with this here? Oh, there we go, eh?
Yeah, I mean,
how put that in there. See if the censors catch it.
Adult jokes and we're focusing on Cartoon Network, but like Animaniacs is just the writers playing chicken with the censor.
Oh yeah, Animaniacs was huge on that. Like they would purposefully go too far in order to scale it back and still keep the joke they wanted.
I will never believe that we got fingerprints.
I believe it, because it goes straight over every child's head. No kid's going to get that.
So before it gets too late, I definitely want to cover the later years of Cartoon Network.
Yeah. And that's where I was transitioning to. After the years in which they networked out to Canada to basically like fill the block, we had a few standouts here and there. I remember Camp Laszlo relatively fondly, but they had like a lot of flops in this time.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But then we hit their if like my childhood age, like our middle school years was, you know, the golden age of Cartoon Network, the Renaissance came just a few years back, and I think the Renaissance started with Adventure Time.
Definitely. It
Yeah,
really felt like the years around 2010 were just Cartoon Network desperately flailing about, and then they finally landed on, oh hey, we should make cartoons that are good. Mm-hmm. Which I know is reductionist, but that's what we ended up with.
So here's a fun fact. Nickelodeon originally got that pilot for Adventure Time, and then they were like, nah, fuck that shit. We don't want your dumb bullshit. So they went to Cartoon Network, and Cartoon Network's like, yeah, no, we'll take it. Now Nickelodeon's kicking itself like shit. Imagine, fucking Adventure Time was almost a Nickelodeon show, and it would have fit totally fine there.
And then they would have moved it to Nicktoons, and it would have flopped, and...
You know what? Fuck, you're probably right.
Nickelodeon has had a lot of issues.
Nobody's going to talk about Fosters. never talk about Fosters.
I enjoyed Fosters, and same with just to roll back a little bit, a show that I feel like I kind of have to bring up just because I love Courage the Cowardly Dog so much, and this emulated like a lot of that in my mind. Flapjack.
Oh my God, Flapjack. Flapjack. Okay,
Flapjack was more horrifying than Courage in its imagery.
But Flapjack also came out alongside Chowder, and Chowder was my favorite. Chowder
was trippy as hell. I love the way they had the textures animate as the characters move, like the characters get dragged across the texture.
Yes, that is always one of my favorite animation tricks. And somebody in the chat saying Fosters was great except for Blue. Blue is an asshole. Blue ruined the show for me. I literally couldn't watch the show because of Blue.
Blue was always an asshole. That's kind of the point of the
character.
That's
it's
why he was trying to get put up for adoption.
I know, and but if your character is irredeemable all of the time, I can't watch.
And what does that say about the kid who made him, if that's your imaginary friend?
Well, remember, he's giving him up, which means he's outgrown him.
Yeah, but that's the thing. When he was a kid, he made Blue, and Blue is exactly as he was when he was made.
Yeah, because kids are often selfish little shits.
And then he made Cheese.
Oh my God, Cheese.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's definitely worth saying that in that 2010 period, you had Fosters, you had Chowder, but how many other shows do you just not remember because they were out for maybe a season and then died?
The honest answer to this is I don't remember any of them because this was around the time where I also cut my cable line.
Oh no.
Yeah, so until like the comeback when things started becoming like mimetic and showing up online, Adventure Time was the first one that rolled out to me like that. And then came Regular Show.
Oh, fucking Regular Show.
Awesome. Fantastic. Probably one of the like funnier, irreverent shows to come out of it, like come out of Cartoon Network ever.
I was a little sad that like they originally were like, yeah, and they can say a couple little swears here and there, and they're like, okay, let's roll that back. The parents are getting a little mad that, you know, the kids are quoting, but they still kept some of the darker and weirder imagery and ideas.
Yes.
But yeah, no.
And regular show was something that I never watched, like, okay, I never watched it regularly. Again, aforementioned cable cutting. But every episode I've watched of it, I've enjoyed.
Ditto. That was kind of my same experience. I couldn't regularly watch it, but when I did, oh man, I love that fucking show. That weird, trippy show. And now, and now Close Enough is on HBO Max. I need to check out what that's about.
Well, I was going to say, I think I'm the only one here who never not had access to Cartoon Network. Because even when I was going to college, for some reason, the package that came with my dorm came with Cartoon Network. So,
yeah.
But what I was going to say about Regular Show was honestly, the previews of it scared me away from it because it really. I don't know if I just have a built-in theme where if I see something mimetic, I'm like, well, that's for casual people. I'm a connoisseur of cartoons. But I just remember, like, especially the one where they were wrestling in their room, and I was just looking, like, who is this for? Only for me to actually watch a whole episode and finally go, oh, okay, I get it now.
Yes. It's one of those shows where it's like, you look at it, you look at small bits of it, and you're like, I don't know. But then you see it in its entirety, and it's like, okay, I get it. I understand the style that they're going for here. And that's not to say that this era wasn't without its like major flops like Uncle, Grandpa, and Clarence. Because those still happened around this time. But it was also... What?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say it was also around this time where I think one of their biggest shows of all time, it's probably up there with Adventure Time. Beyond it, if you consider its fandom, Steven Universe finally emerged.
Boy.
Please refer to our 3 other episodes talking about Steven Universe.
You absolutely may. You know, just for those watching on YouTube, where if you're listening on the podcast or listening on the stream, we do post these on YouTube. You can click a notification that'll probably pop up here, or find it in the description.
Yeah.
To find many of the Steven Universe episodes.
Yeah, Steven Universe is one of my... I have been very critical of Steven Universe. Rightly so, I believe. But it's also one of my favorite animated shows of all time. Its highs are ridiculously high for me. I loved it, but I also think that it has some really terrible lows and some really big problems. But that being said, still loved it. Watched all of it. I love the creators for trying to do some really, really fundamentally interesting and cool things, even if I think they failed in some places. Shout out to Rebecca Sugar and Ian shit, I'm forgetting his name. But the creators they tried their best.
And they succeeded. The thing I think that
in
catches
terms of
me,
popularity, they made a fucking fan base.
I think the thing that catches me the most about Steven Universe is even though it lasted 6 seasons, they were still able to tell a story. They didn't push it beyond its natural concluding point.
Yeah. Well, for that, I mean, you're right. I mean, go ahead and say that. But the problem is, you say that, and then if people come in on that first season and they're going to go, where's this overarching story? Because I think one of the biggest weaknesses for Steven Universe is that first season takes a long time to get to the point.
Yeah, but you're also kind of introducing a lot of concepts as you're going, and the writers and everybody are still trying to find their feet with it. Yeah. Which I think it's necessary in that type of a show.
That first season, though, you could really make a list of episodes that people should not watch in that first season, and they'd literally be fine.
Yeah, probably. And I think season 2 opens up with a Uncle Grandpa crossover.
Which, I do not care about Uncle Grandpa, but that episode is fucking great.
If there was ever an episode to take the piss out of Steven Universe, it was the Uncle Grandpa special.
Yes.
That's not my baby.
Fight for that. That's not my baby! No, I will fight for that fucking episode. I know some people hate it and don't like and hate it for being a crossover with Uncle Grandpa because they hate Uncle Grandpa, but it's still really good.
And that's fair enough. I actually haven't seen it. I only noticed it in a thumbnail. I remember when they were advertising that episode, but I didn't actually watch it when it was live.
Yeah.
But I want to end this conversation on Cartoon Network on one particular show, though.
A show that I think stands out above pretty much in terms of what it does, how mimetic it is, and just every single episode being something that I've enjoyed. Oh yeah.
I want to talk about
We
Gumball.
Bears!
Of course you would.
I mean, it's me. He couldn't get enough time to find an actual drawing of me, so he picked Grizz. So I'm flattered.
But no, the fucking Gumball.
Every
episode I have watched, I've always thought to myself, no, this shit. There's no way that this show is, any good. But it always fucking surprised me.
It's always good. There are probably worse episodes of that show.
Probably.
But I do not know of a bad episode I have seen so fucking far.
They did an entire an entire episode bashing essentially a bootlegger trying to.
So in China, there's a bootleg version of Gumball. And it's obvious it's really just a full-on bootleg version of Gumball down to scenes being completely redone. And so in Gumball, they took those designs, made a bootleg of those designs, and then made them a bootleg of their lives in the show. And it's amazing.
It's fantastic. And then they have episodes where very meta episodes. They're trying to outrun the animation budget.
Oh god, yeah.
Just weird existential things, and then the humor it's all over the place because it touches on some adult notes, it touches on some juvenile notes, but it blends it so seamlessly. Yeah. I can't think of another show that has done something like this in animation where I've been able to enjoy it as thoroughly since the Animaniacs when I was young.
You know what? That's actually a really decent comparison.
Because it does. It plays a whole lot with the meta world within itself, working on the idea that we know this is a cartoon.
They did an entire oh, sorry.
Even all the characters within it all have like different animation styles about them. You have claymation characters. You have characters that are literally just JPEGs.
Yeah, you have pixel art characters. You have like characters that are literally just a mouth that was filmed in live action.
Mm-hmm.
And they play the same games with the censors. Like, how far-reaching was the frickin' episode where Alan takes an eggplant up what is essentially his butt?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, that was terrible. Oh my god.
Now, here's a pineapple. No.
No. Yeah, it's good shit. Gumball is my favorite, is easily my favorite Cartoon Network show of the tens, of the teens, as it were. I love it so much.
It gives me hope for the future. Like Gumball, like this is the reaction I had while watching Gumball. I wish I had this when I was a kid.
Yeah.
That is what I said when watching Gumball. Because I think, and I'm really happy that, you know, the next generation has that, like, this kind of a show growing up, so that they have things that they can be happy that they had when they were kids.
I'm sad though. Amazing World of Gumball is over. Steven Universe is over. We Bare Bears is still going, which, by the way, We Bare Bears, super cute. Like, it is just a cute, fun little show. It's not amazing, but it's good.
Which I think can describe a lot of Cartoon Network's, like, middle library.
Yeah. Also, fucking Craig of the Creek.
Yeah, I was not gonna let us.
Yeah, that's a newer one that I'm relatively unfamiliar with.
It's made for kids, specifically for kids and families, but it is also very well written, very cute, very well done. It is a very good show. Every time I see an episode, I'm like, aw, I would have loved this as a kid. I would have totally been about that. Also, Mau Mau Heroes of Pure Heart is my new favorite show that's still running.
I know OKKO was good for a hot minute. I don't know if it's still running. But
OKKO finished.
It's dead.
Yeah. It finished. It had its full series, and it was good. Apparently, I never actually watched much of it, mostly because it felt okay, this is gonna sound really shitty of me, but it just kind of felt like a bunch of people my age trying to write a show about the stuff that they grew up with. And you know what? As someone who's really, really into Scott Pilgrim, the movie and the comic, that's cool. But by the time I got to OKKO, I'm like, I've been here. I don't need to go back to my childhood that strongly again. But you do you.
God, I feel like we could do an entire other episode on Cartoon Network because there's so many shows we haven't even gotten around to talking about, like Codename Kids Next Door, which was another big one when I was a kid.
Oh hell yeah! Over the garden wall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, they were just that. Honestly, even though it had such a long period where, just to repeat myself, it felt like it was flailing. Oh God, flailing about. It had a lot of gems, and I think that's why the channel has stuck around for so long, is even when it's just grasping at straws, it's able to pull out a hit.
Yeah.
And I mean, we already talked about Ed, Edd and Eddy a little bit. We didn't go like nearly as in depth as we could on that show.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, there were so many just like little middle shows that I can remember. Fucking Time Squad.
Time Squad.
Yeah, that's the reaction. You say an episode, like, oh, that's what Cartoon Network is. And it feels like that's what it's going to continue to be. I feel like we're going to be kind of in some middling years here for a bit again. But the fact that they were able to have their golden era, and then I feel like they've had their renaissance. I don't know what's going to be coming next. But Cartoon Network will always, I'll always have fond memories of it.
Yeah, I grew up with it. It helped shape it helped shape a lot of how I look at entertainment, the kind of shows that I love. I got it, and you can't. I know that Toonami was a block. We barely even talked about Toonami at all. Toonami was a whole nother episode. Yeah, Toonami could literally be its own fucking talkcast because it's so influential in my childhood, and it was
Yeah, we could do an entire show on Toonami, because I mean, it's had a number of changes and like swaps to it as well.
Oh yeah, I mean now it's on Adult Swim.
Which I don't know if that's. I mean, I don't think if I were a kid I could have watched Dragon Ball Z week to week. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh yeah. Oh man. Yeah. You know what? We'll save this for if we do a Tsunami one. We'll because there's so much to talk about there. Oh
we'll
my
have to
god.
Save that for another time, though. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode, and I'm gonna leave this with you for those out there that have the ability to comment on such a thing. I want you to answer this question for me. What were your favorite shows growing up on Cartoon Network? And a more important question, whatever happened to Robot Jones? We'll see you guys next time.